Have you ever stopped to consider why you believe what you believe? Are your convictions the result of careful reasoning or simply accepted dogma? These questions may seem daunting, yet they are the gateways to a profound journey of self-discovery. They invite you into the realm of critical thinking, a realm where assumptions are challenged, beliefs are probed, and the mind is continually sharpened. We often find ourselves accepting information as it is, without questioning its validity or understanding its roots. This is where critical thinking steps in, encouraging us to peel back the layers, question the status quo, and engage in thoughtful reflection. It's about fostering open-mindedness, nurturing curiosity, and refusing to be a passive consumer of information. Critical thinking is not just a skill, but a mindset, a way of interacting with the world that can radically transform your perception and understanding. So, buckle up, dear listeners. It's time to embark on a journey to discover the power of critical thinking, a tool that can transform the way you perceive and interact with the world. Critical thinking, though it sounds complex, is simply the practice of analyzing and evaluating thoughts or ideas systematically. Now let's unpack that a bit. At its heart, critical thinking is about taking a step back, observing and diving deep into our thoughts and ideas. It's about not just accepting things at face value, but rather exploring them, turning them over in our hands, so to speak, and examining them from all angles. First, there's analysis. This is where we break down complex ideas into smaller, more manageable parts. For example, if we're presented with a political argument, we might separate it into its key points, considering each one individually. This allows us to better understand the overall message and its underlying assumptions. Next, we have evaluation. This is the stage where we weigh up these smaller parts, assessing their value, relevance, and validity. We might ask ourselves questions like, does this point make sense? Is it supported by evidence? Does it fit logically with the other points? Then there's systematic reasoning. This is the process of logically piecing together these individual parts to form a coherent, reasoned understanding. It's like putting together a jigsaw puzzle, making sure each piece fits just right to create the overall picture. But critical thinking isn't just about analysis, evaluation, and systematic reasoning. It's also about questioning and skepticism. It's about not taking things for granted, but instead probing, asking why, or how do we know this is true? It's about challenging assumptions, seeking evidence, and being open to different perspectives. In a world overflowing with information, misinformation, and differing opinions, critical thinking is more important than ever. It helps us navigate this complex landscape, sift through the noise, and arrive at well-informed decisions. It's not about being argumentative or difficult, but rather it's about striving for clarity, precision, and understanding. So, critical thinking is a skill, a tool that allows us to dissect information, discern truth from falsehood, and make informed decisions. Imagine buying a house. Would you purchase the first one you see, or would you compare different options, consider the pros and cons, and make an informed decision? This is an everyday example of critical thinking. The house symbolizes the decisions we face daily, and the process of evaluating various options embodies the essence of critical thinking. Critical thinking is a powerful tool that can transform the way you make decisions. It's not just about picking between two options, but rather digging deeper, asking the right questions and weighing the potential outcomes. It's about not settling for the obvious, but rather exploring the unknown, the unexpected and the uncharted. Let's go back to our house buying example. You wouldn't buy a house based solely on how it looks from the outside, would you? You'd want to know about its structure, its location, its price, and more. You'd ask questions, seek expert advice, and take your time to make an informed decision. Similarly, critical thinking involves questioning, analysing, and evaluating information. It's about not accepting things at face value, but rather seeking out the truth. It's about understanding the implications of our decisions, considering the wider context, and making informed choices. But what happens when we don't use critical thinking? We may end up making decisions based on incomplete information, bias, or impulse. We may overlook important details, ignore potential risks, and ultimately make poor decisions. The danger of not using critical thinking is like buying a house without checking it thoroughly. You might end up with a house in a bad neighbourhood, with structural problems, or one that's overpriced. The consequences could be significant, affecting your finances, your safety, and your peace of mind. Just like buying a house, critical thinking allows us to make the best decisions in various aspects of our lives. It empowers us to understand the world around us better, to challenge assumptions, to solve problems effectively, and to make wise and informed decisions. And isn't that something we all aspire to? Remember your school days, when you were taught to memorize facts and figures without understanding the why behind them? This traditional approach to education often left us with more questions than answers. It's like being given a map without a compass. Sure, you know where you are, but without understanding how to navigate, you're likely to get lost. This is where the power of critical thinking comes into play. In the realm of education, critical thinking is akin to that compass. It's not just about absorbing information, but about questioning it, dissecting it, and making connections. It encourages a deeper understanding rather than mere memorization. Let's take the study of history, for instance. Rather than simply memorizing dates and events, critical thinking pushes us to explore the causes and effects, the motivations behind decisions, and the impact on subsequent generations. It's about seeing the broader picture, not just the individual pixels. In the sciences, critical thinking allows us to go beyond the formulas and equations. It invites us to question the principles, to test the theories, and to draw our own conclusions. It fuels the curiosity and the drive that has led to many of the world's greatest discoveries. In the arts, critical thinking helps to foster creativity and originality. It's not about replicating what's been done before, but about challenging norms, pushing boundaries, and creating something truly unique. And let's not forget about mathematics. Yes, even in a subject so seemingly straightforward, critical thinking has a significant role to play. It's not just about getting the right answer, but understanding why that answer is correct and how different mathematical concepts intertwine. Critical thinking in education is like a lens that brings everything into focus. It enriches the learning experience, making it more engaging, more meaningful, and ultimately, more enjoyable. Critical thinking in education is not just about learning more, it's about learning better. Ever wondered why some people excel in their careers while others struggle? The answer often lies in their ability to think critically. In the professional realm, critical thinking is an indispensable skill. It is the backbone of decision-making and problem-solving. It's like a secret weapon, giving an edge to those who wield it effectively. Let's delve into the role of critical thinking in the workplace. Imagine you're a project manager at a software development company. You're faced with a task that seems impossible to complete within the given deadline. A critical thinker doesn't throw their hands up in despair. Instead, they dissect the problem, identify bottlenecks, and devise a plan to overcome these challenges. This can mean reallocating resources, reprioritizing tasks, or even seeking innovative solutions. That's the power of critical thinking at play. Now consider a marketing professional tasked with launching a new product. The market is saturated and competition is fierce. A critical thinker wouldn't merely follow traditional marketing strategies. They would scrutinize market trends, understand consumer behavior, and devise a unique marketing approach to make their product stand out. In both these examples, critical thinking helps to solve problems and foster innovation. It leads to better productivity and efficiency. It's the catalyst that turns challenges into opportunities and ideas into reality. But it's not just about problem solving. Critical thinking also plays a pivotal role in team collaboration. It encourages open-mindedness and respect for different perspectives. In a brainstorming session, a critical thinker does not dismiss ideas outright, but evaluates them on their merits. This fosters a culture of inclusivity and innovation, where every voice is heard and valued. In the professional domain, critical thinking is not an optional skill, it is a necessity. It's the difference between being a passive participant and an active driver of change. It's what sets leaders apart from followers. So whether you're at the start of your career or a seasoned professional, honing your critical thinking skills can propel you towards greater success. Despite its importance, critical thinking is not a widespread practice. Why? Because there are barriers that hinder us from thinking critically. Let's delve into some of these common barriers. First up, we have cognitive biases. These are systematic errors in thinking that affect the decisions and judgments that people make. We've all fallen prey to them. For instance, confirmation bias leads us to favor information that confirms our pre-existing beliefs, while ignoring evidence that challenges them. It's like having blinkers on. We only see what we want to see. Next, we encounter emotional reasoning. This is when our emotions drive our thinking. For example, if we're feeling particularly pessimistic, we might interpret a situation negatively, even if the facts don't support our view. Our emotions, while important, should not cloud our judgment. And then there's the barrier of conformity. The pressure to fit in and agree with others can sometimes override our critical thinking. We may choose to silence our doubts or questions in fear of standing out or causing disagreement. It's a classic case of if you can't beat them, join them. These barriers, among others, can significantly impede our ability to think critically. But the good news is that they can be overcome. How, you ask? Well, for cognitive biases, awareness is key. By understanding these biases and how they influence our thinking, we can work to counteract them. In the case of emotional reasoning, it's important to separate our feelings from the facts. This doesn't mean ignoring our emotions, but rather acknowledging them and then objectively assessing the situation. As for conformity, it requires courage to challenge the status quo. But remember, critical thinking is not about agreeing with others. It's about seeking the truth, even if it means standing alone. So there you have it: cognitive biases, emotional reasoning and conformity, 3 common barriers to critical thinking. But remember, recognizing and overcoming these barriers is the first step towards becoming a better critical thinker. Now that we understand the importance of critical thinking and the barriers that stand in our way, how can we cultivate this vital skill? The development of critical thinking is akin to flexing a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. And like any skill, it requires practice, patience, and a bit of strategy. Let's start with questioning assumptions. In our day-to-day lives, we often accept information as it's presented to us. But to think critically, we must challenge these assumptions. Ask yourself, is this fact or opinion? Is there evidence to support this claim? Are there alternative explanations? Remember, a curious mind is a critical mind. Next, seek diverse perspectives. This means exposing yourself to different viewpoints, cultures, and experiences. By doing so, you broaden your understanding of the world and learn to see things from multiple angles. This diversity of thought is a rich soil in which critical thinking can grow. Lastly, practice reflective thinking. This is the process of consciously analysing and making sense of our thoughts, emotions, and experiences. It helps us understand why we think the way we do and allows us to identify any biases or blind spots in our thinking. This process of self-reflection can be done through journaling, meditation, or even in conversation with others. The key is to set aside dedicated time for introspection, to delve deep into your thought processes and evaluate them with a discerning eye. Remember, the world is not always black and white. It's filled with shades of grey, and it's in this grey area that critical thinking thrives. It allows us to navigate uncertainty, make informed decisions, and engage in productive dialogue. Cultivating critical thinking is a journey, not a destination. So, start today and reap the benefits in every aspect of your life. So, we've journeyed through the fascinating world of critical thinking. But what are the key takeaways from our exploration? Let's delve into the essence of our discussion. Critical thinking, as we've unpacked, is not merely about absorbing information. It's about actively engaging with that information, questioning it, analysing it, and drawing thoughtful conclusions. It's about developing a curiosity and a hunger for understanding that fuels our ability to think independently and innovate. In the realm of education, we've highlighted how critical thinking empowers students to become active learners rather than passive recipients of information. It encourages them to question, to challenge, and to think creatively. Incorporating critical thinking into education isn't just about equipping students with a skill, it's about fostering a mindset that will serve them well beyond the confines of the classroom. In the workplace too, the power of critical thinking shines brightly. It enables us to solve problems more effectively, make better decisions, and adapt more fluidly to new situations. It's an essential skill in an era where innovation and adaptability are highly prized. But what we also need to remember is that there are barriers to critical thinking. These can range from cognitive biases that skew our perception of reality to social pressures that discourage questioning and independent thought. Overcoming these barriers requires awareness, patience, and practice. And finally, we've explored strategies to cultivate critical thinking. It's about fostering an environment of curiosity and open dialogue, whether that's in a classroom, a boardroom, or a living room. It's about encouraging questions, promoting diversity of thought, and most importantly, creating a safe space for mistakes and learning. Remember, critical thinking is not about being argumentative or overly skeptical. It's about being curious, open-minded, and thoughtful. So, keep questioning, keep exploring, and most importantly, keep thinking critically.